Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to my kitchen for another episode from my amazing food series. My name is Derek from Simnett Nutrition, and today we're gonna be talking all about the hotly debated legume, soy. So, as usual today, we'll talk a little bit about the history of soy, some cool facts about it, of course the nutritional content of it, a few ways that you can prepare it, and of course, as always, I will share a recipe with you at the end. Today I'm gonna be showing you how to make this amazing, simple, and delicious miso tahini sauce, and then we'll put it all together on top of this colorful Buddha bowl. Should be good. But since there's so much misinformation about soy, I'm gonna do my best to cut through all the BS and the murky waters and just try and give you guys the best information that I think there is out there. So it's gonna be a really information heavy video. There's gonna be a few studies that I reference. I'll put the links in the description down below if you wanna check those out. So yeah, lots to talk about in this one. Let's get started. Soy is a legume that has been cultivated in China for thousands of years and became popular in other Asian countries over 1,000 years ago. Soy is grown in many countries across the world, including Brazil, Argentina, India, Paraguay, Canada, and the United States. The United States actually produces more soybeans than any other country in the world. And you may be asking, is it because there's so many dang vegans in America eating soy and tofu dogs? No, that's not the reason why. And you can see here by this chart provided by the US farmers how the use is actually split up. So 20% of all soy grown in the US is used for oil, both cooking and industrial uses. 80% of it is used for food, and 97% of that 80% is used for animal feed. So that only leaves 3 measly percent for us starving vegans for our soy dogs and our tofu. But no, that's actually not just where that 3% is going. If you think of how many foods soy is added to, and consider like how much people buy like tofu and, you know, soy dogs and that sort of stuff, it's such a small percentage. And you might be sitting there thinking, yeah, but this is only in the US. The soy that the rainforest is being cut down to grow has gotta be for tofu and that sort of stuff, right? Well, as you can see, this report shows that soybean meal accounts for about 80% of soybean weight and is used primarily for animal feed. After crushing, 70 to 75% of the world's soy ends up as feed for chickens, pigs, cows, and farmed fish. The remainder is used in a variety of industrial applications, including biodiesel production and for direct human consumption. So direct human consumption was one of the very last things on the list. So of course, I'm not saying that there's no blood on the hands of vegans, but to turn the blame onto vegans and saying all that soy is being grown for like our soy dogs and tofu and veggie burgers and that sort of thing is totally wrong. Since soy has so many different applications and uses, it has quickly become one of the world's largest commodity crops. And because of this, it has obviously garnered the attention of big agriculture and their scientists. So way back in the 90s, they developed a genetically modified version of the soybean in the hopes that it would increase yields. They called these soybeans Roundup Ready seeds, and they called them that because they're actually genetically programmed to withstand massive amounts of the herbicide Glyphosate. So for those of you who don't know what that is, you can buy it in stores and it's called Roundup, and if you've ever sprayed it on anything in your lawn, which you shouldn't because it's really bad for the environment, but if you have, you'll notice that it kills absolutely everything. You can get like a speck of it on a leaf and it's probably gonna at least kill that leaf, if not kill that whole plant. So you can imagine like how, I don't even know how they've programmed these things to withstand countless spraying of this herbicide, but they did, and it's out there. It should also be mentioned that glyphosate has been labeled as a class 2A carcinogen by the World Health Organization, which means that it is likely to cause cancer in humans. You know, no big deal, just spray it all over our food. So just to give you an idea of how much of the world's soy is being genetically modified, I pulled up this article here from 2016 that explains it. Soybean production in the 3 major producers is dominated by genetically modified strains. By 2010, the penetration of genetically modified varieties had reached 100% in Argentina, 93% in the US, and 75% in Brazil. Although genetically modified soy was introduced largely with the aim of achieving higher yields, the evidence suggests that, if anything, yields have tended to be lower. The use of genetically modified soy in these countries has also limited their export potential to the EU, where restrictions on genetically modified crops are tight and where the approval process for new GM products is low. I know that opinions on GMOs are split and it's a bit of a polarizing topic, but for myself, I personally try and only buy organic, non-GMO soy. And if you look around in stores, most of the tofu and tempeh and other soy-based products are actually made from non-GMO soy. A lot of the GMO stuff is actually given to the animals as feed crops. Soy is so cheap anyways, generally if there is a choice between conventional soy and organic non-GMO soy, the organic stuff is only marginally more expensive anyways. So with all things considered, my health and the environment and everything, I try and only buy my organic soy. But you might be different and you might have a different opinion on GMOs, so definitely leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. So I don't want to be like defending soy for this entire video, but there's so much misinformation about it that these topics have to be discussed. So there's a few here that I'm going to talk about that I always seem to get questions and comments on. So probably the most common comment or question that I get whenever I make a post with soy in it, or I include soy in one of my what I eat in a day videos here is soy estrogenic? Is it gonna give me man boobs? Is it gonna kill my gains? Is it gonna affect my testosterone? And is it gonna turn me into a woman? Derek, what the heck's going on here? And to answer that, I'm gonna refer to this paper called Soybean Isoflavone Exposure Does Not Have Feminizing Effects on Men, a critical examination of the clinical evidence. So this is a great article, and I think it's worth reading all of the summary and highlights of this since it gives us so much good information, and I get this question and this comment so much about soy. Objective: to critically evaluate the clinical evidence and, when not available, the animal data most relevant to concerns that isoflavone exposure in the form of supplements or soy foods has feminizing effects on men. Results: in contrast to the results of some rodent studies, findings from a recently published meta-analysis and subsequently published studies show that neither isoflavone supplements nor isoflavone-rich soy affect total or free testosterone levels. Similarly, there is essentially no evidence from the 9 identified clinical studies that isoflavone exposure affects circulating estrogen levels in men. Clinical evidence also indicates that isoflavones have no effect on sperm or semen parameters, although only 3 intervention studies were identified and none were longer than 3 months in duration. Finally, findings from animal studies suggesting that isoflavones increase the risk of erectile dysfunction are not applicable to men because of differences in isoflavone metabolism between rodents and humans and the excessively high amounts of isoflavones to which the animals were exposed. Conclusions. The intervention data indicate that isoflavones do not exert feminizing effects on men at intake levels equal to and even considerably higher than are typical for Asian males. So there you go, to all the haters out there that say I have a high squeaky voice and a weak facial hair game because the soy is feminizing me. That's not it at all. I was just born this way. However, in contrast, if you are looking for a good source of estrogen in your diet, if you're looking to grow some man boobs, get some patchy facial hair, or a high squeaky voice, then you should probably turn to dairy, as this paper explains. The present data on men and children indicate that estrogens in milk were absorbed and gonadotropin secretion was suppressed, followed by a decrease in testosterone secretion. Sexual maturation of prepubertal children could be affected by the ordinary intake of cow's milk. So there you go. Who would have thought that drinking the mammary secretions from a pregnant animal would have more feminizing effects on humans than eating an actual bean, hey? Wild. And if you're still not convinced, maybe you want to go check out my buddy Brian's video where he ate over a pound of soy for a month and he had his testosterone levels checked beforehand and afterwards, and his testosterone levels actually went up after the end of that month. Now, I know that's just one anecdote, but I just think it's funny because I've been at parties before where I've had people like not wanting to try my soy burger or whatever because the dudes are like worried that it's gonna give them man boobs or some feminizing effects. Meanwhile, they're sitting there drinking something that is even higher in phytoestrogens, which is beer. In 1999, a potent phytoestrogen called 8-prenylnaringenin was discovered in hops. In fact, it's the most potent phytoestrogen found to date, 50 times more potent than genistein in soy. So can we finally drop the soy feminizing men topic, please? I am so tired of it. And I know men aren't the only ones with concerns about soy. I know some women that are concerned that it might give them breast cancer. But in actuality, studies have proven the opposite, that it's actually protective against breast cancer and can increase your chances of survival once you have it. So you can see here in this study of nearly 10,000 women with breast cancer from the US and China, they concluded, despite large differences in soy isoflavone intake by country, isoflavone consumption was inversely associated with reoccurrence among both US and Chinese women, regardless of whether data were analyzed separately by country or combined. So another concern that people often have with soy is that it might be goitrogenic. And what goitrogenic foods are, basically foods that will disrupt the functioning of your thyroid gland, making it hard for it to uptake the necessary minerals that it needs in order to function properly. And then this results in the thyroid swelling, causing a goiter. So like with other goitrogenic foods, such as cabbage, kale, Brussels sprouts, or cauliflower, and as long as you have normal thyroid function, you're not taking these foods in massive amounts, and you have some sort of iodine in your diet, then these foods are absolutely no problem for your thyroid. In fact, they're some of the healthiest foods in the world that we can be eating. So if you are eating a lot of these goitrogenic foods, and you know what, just for everybody, we should make sure that we have a good source of iodine in our diet. So seaweed is a really good one. There is iodized table salt as well, and you could always supplement it if you want to. So the next argument about soy that I'm going to tackle is the anti-nutrients in them. So for those of you that don't know, anti-nutrients are things like lectins, oxalates, and phytates, and basically what those do is they bind to nutrients in our gut and inhibit the absorption. So they can be found in some form or other in all plant foods, but they are concentrated highest in things like nuts, seeds, grains, and legumes, including soy. So I've touched on this topic in other videos, and there's lots of good videos out there. Mike the Vegan has one. Dr. Greger from nutritionfacts.org has tons of good videos on anti-nutrients. So I won't spend too long on this topic, but basically they have found that simple preparation of these foods reduces a lot of those inhibitory nutrients. So soaking, sprouting, and even cooking can reduce these anti-nutrients as demonstrated here by this study. The cooking process was found to be more effective in reducing levels of all the investigated anti-nutritional factors except phytic acid in common beans and soybeans. So what do we do about those pesky phytates that are still left over? Well, our bodies are actually smarter than you might think, and our microbiome actually learns to adjust to increased phytic acid consumption and deals with it appropriately, as this study here talks about. Sorry, so many references in this video, but I honestly didn't know how to make this video without them, and I just can't spout off all this information and make it sound credible without like reading it. So anyways, here it is. So this article is titled, "Diet Shapes the Ability of Human Intestinal Microbiota to Degrade Phytate." And what they found was a diet rich in phytate increases the potential of intestinal microbiota to degrade phytate. The cooperation of aerobic and anaerobic bacteria is essential for the complete phytate degradation. So while cooking obviously improves the digestibility of these things, fermentation seems to be the absolute best way to improve the digestibility of soy. So if you have a choice, tempeh should probably be your first choice for consuming soy. And natto is another fermented soy product that if you can stomach it, great. There's lots of good health benefits to it, but man, I've tried it before and it was not for me. I'll go on a little bit more about that later in the video here. All right, before I get into the nutritional content of soy, I should mention that just because these studies say that soy is good, it doesn't mean that all soy is good and that all soy is the same. So we really want to try and avoid eating processed soy as much as possible. So you want to try to stick to the whole food sources of soy, those being tofu, tempeh, natto, soybeans, miso, and soy milk. And then of course you want to try and limit your intake of processed soy products, and that would include things like soy protein isolate, textured vegetable protein, and basically anything else other than that list of a few things that I mentioned before this. Soy is a really fatty bean, and in order for it to be made into flour and soy protein isolate, it must be defatted. And to do that, they use a chemical process, and the chemical that they use is called hexane. So you won't see hexane listed in the list of ingredients when you buy a soy product because they actually don't have to list it by law. It's part of the processing and not part of the ingredients. However, reports have definitely found leftover hexane in processed soy products. So while hexane hasn't been evaluated by the World Health Organization for its cancer-causing effects or its long-term effects, some short-term effects are definitely known, and it is not good for us, and it is definitely not good for the environment either. So it's best to avoid if you can. Soy protein isolate and other forms of processed soy are usually the culprit in studies where they show unfavorable outcomes for soy. So it's definitely best to avoid. Try and stick to those whole food versions like I mentioned. So with all this controversy around this little legume, do not let it distract you from the fact that it is a very nutritious and healthy food. So as we have a look at the chronometer here, you can see that 1 cup of cooked soybeans provides us with almost 300 calories, 20% of which are coming from carbohydrates, 44% coming from fat, and 37% coming from protein. And you can see for a plant food, this is incredibly high in fat and protein and low in carbohydrates, making this a very special bean. Tofu tends to be a little lower in carbs and higher in fat and protein, with edamame having a more even mix of the 3 macros. So as we scroll down here on chronometer, you can see that it's a relatively good source of fiber and quite a bit of fat, as I mentioned. It has some omega-3s, although I wouldn't call it a good source. It's not a terrible source, but it does have a lot of omega-6s. People are often quick to vilify as inflammatory, but they definitely serve beneficial purposes in the body, especially if they're coming from good sources and in balanced amounts with the omega-3s. Soy is obviously an amazing source of protein, as you can see. It wasn't called the meat of the field for nothing. In this 1 cup of cooked beans, you get over 30 grams of protein with a good wide range of essential amino acids. Soy is often referred to as a complete protein. However, I always like to point out that all plant foods contain all 9 amino acids, just in varying levels, while you can see here, all are well represented with soy. So it's not a terrible source, but also not a great source of vitamins. However, combined with some other healthy foods, it's easy to make up for that, and I will show you how. I'm gonna do that with this bootable and sauce recipe here at the end. So it's a good source of vitamin K, which our body can convert into the usable form of K2, but you can get K2 in really high amounts from the fermented form of soy called natto. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the highest source of vitamin K2 in the entire plant kingdom by far. However, like I mentioned earlier, if you have ever seen this stuff, it looks crazy. It looks like it came from the mouth of Alien. So vitamin K2 is really important for good bone health, but luckily enough, our body can convert vitamin K into K2, so I'm just gonna stick with eating lots of K, and I'll leave the natto for someone else. So while it's not the best source of vitamins, it does contain a good amount of minerals, including lots of copper, lots of iron, lots of magnesium, manganese, phosphorus, and even some zinc. And if you're looking for a good source of calcium, tofu can actually be a good source of calcium depending on how it is prepared. So edamame, tofu, tempeh, soybeans, they all have a slightly different nutritional profile. I just did soybeans here, but if you want to look at the other ones, you can go on Chronometer yourself and check them out. So I should mention that soybeans are among the 8 food types to be considered some of the most common food allergens, along with milk, eggs, fish, crustaceans, tree nuts, peanuts, and wheat. All right, so now that we have all that out of the way, let's talk about a few of the ways that we can eat soy. So there's a lot of different ways. It's a really versatile food. Some of my favorite ways are to have it as tofu or tempeh. I like to have it as sauces, so they make tamari, brags, or soy sauce. There's also miso as well. Sometimes I'll have those fake meats that we talked about with the soy protein isolate. Of course, we want to try and moderate our intake of that, but I do have them sometimes. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Out of all the types of soy that I eat, I probably get the most amount of questions about tempeh. People are often really curious about it, and it's a bit of an acquired taste, so people often want to know how to make it taste good. So since tempeh is a fermented soy product, it does have a slightly sour, bitter taste to it, and it's definitely like a little bit nutty as well. Much stronger in flavor than tofu. So what you gotta do is you just have to season it, and you have to make it taste good. So I have a video on here called Tempeh Tacos, I think, high protein tempeh tacos, something like that. I'll put a link in the description down below so you guys can check it out. And that's been one of my absolute favorite recipes that I've actually ever made on this channel. And I know just by the amount of people that have reposted it and tagged me in it that I know you guys liked it as well. So definitely check that one out because it is a fire recipe for sure. And if you've only tried one brand of tempeh and you decide, you know what, I don't like that, it's disgusting, it's too bitter, or whatever, you just didn't like it, definitely try another brand because they all have slightly different tastes. So I bet you will find one that you like. And they do make flavored ones out there. There are like smoked tempehs now, and they're so good. Just be cautious because some of them have super high sodium levels. So this is the kind that we get, and I find it to be pretty neutral in flavor. They do make a veggie, garden veggie flavor, something like that, and it is amazing. However, we don't get it here in Canada, that's only in the States. But yeah, this is what it looks like. So don't be alarmed if it looks a little bit funky or if it has some like funny coloration stuff on it. It is supposed to look that way. But it shouldn't smell like much, and it shouldn't be too slimy or anything. That's a good way to know if your tofu or your tempeh has gone off, is if it's slimy. So tofu, like I mentioned, is much milder, and it's much easier to work it into recipes without kind of noticing it. And I have lots of tofu recipes on here, so I'll put those in the description down below. But I think the tofu scramble has probably got to be one of my favorite ways to use tofu. So here is the miso that we use, and miso is just a fermented soybean paste, and it has a pretty salty flavor. So it's really good at adding a salty flavor to things like soups and sauces. And the interesting thing about miso is if eaten in its raw form, the salt content doesn't actually have the same effect on your blood pressure as regular salt does. So that's kind of neat. I know I also have a video with a great high protein miso soup recipe on here as well. So I'll definitely put that link in the description down below too. So now we have come to the recipe portion of the video, and I know it's often so hard to find good, simple, healthy recipes for sauces, and knowing how to make good sauces is so key in order to get the healthy food into our bodies. So I'm gonna show you guys how to make a really awesome tahini and miso sauce, and then we're gonna put it on a little bootable. Should be good. So I'm actually gonna show you guys 2 versions of the same sauce. So the one is just gonna be really simple, 4, is water an ingredient? I don't know, 4 ingredient sauce, and then we'll soup it up a little bit and make it a little bit better using some more ingredients. 1 tablespoon of miso paste, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, 2 tablespoons of tahini, 2 tablespoons of hot water, and then you just want to mix it up. All right, and here it is. So you can see, just with a few ingredients, we've got a nice thick sauce. I don't want to pour it out like I've done before. I just like it like this. You can thin it out a little bit if you want with a bit more water or whatever, but I think it's really good. However, we can make it better. So let's kick it up a notch from here. But if you really just wanted a quick sauce, honestly, these 3 ingredients, whip it up with a bit of water. That's all you need. So we're gonna add a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of toasted sesame seeds. And if you can't find toasted sesame seeds, you can always toast them yourself. It's really easy. There's lots of tutorials out there on how to do it. And then another tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. And then 2 more tablespoons of water just to accommodate for all the extra ingredients we've added here. And then you're gonna wanna just blend it up to blend up all the sesame seeds there. Hold on, no, just get. All right, so there's that one all finished, and again, it's a nice thick sauce. Smells great, let's taste it. Wow. This one's good, so much more flavor than the other one. Woo! All right, so I've already got some rice cooked, so I'm just gonna chop up some vegetables, saute some edamame really quickly, and then put together a Buddha bowl and pour the sauce all over it. So I'll show you guys when it's done. All right, so there's the big old bowl all put together. You can see how nice and beautiful and bright it is. There's a lot of healthy food there, but it needs a little flavor. So it's a good thing we got this sauce. Hey, chill out, man. There you go, a couple treats. All right, so that leaves only one last thing to do. Let's try it out and see how it is. Wow, that sauce is so good. Wow, you guys are gonna have to try that and let me know what you think. So if you do make these recipes, definitely tag me at Simnett Nutrition on Instagram. I absolutely love seeing the food that you guys make. All right, so I think that's it for this video. I'm gonna go and enjoy my Buddha bowl with soy 2 ways. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that you learned something, and I hope that I dispelled some of the myths around soy for you. So I wasn't able to cover every single topic on soy, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that I missed. So if I did miss anything or you have differing opinions, definitely leave your comments in the comment section down below, because I love reading them and I love learning from you guys as well. So I did my best researching for this video, but I do have to say I did have some help, and I had some help from a local friend of mine named Matt Nagra, so I just want to thank him. And he's a naturopath doctor that I know locally, but I also know him on social media here, and he's got a great Instagram and he's doing big things. So I'd love for you guys to go check him out as a thanks for helping me with this video. So thank you all for watching this video all the way till the end. I really do appreciate it, and don't forget to hit that like button. You guys know it helps me in the algorithms, and definitely subscribe if you want to see more from me. I will see you guys soon with another video. Thank you again. Dang, that is so good. To them. Maybe I will tomorrow. I'm gonna take it back tomorrow, and I'm gonna say, look at this. I paid $2.50 for this organic, free-range avocado, and it's freaking black.
Free range.